To talk more about the State of the Union speech is KTVU legal analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, good to see you once again tonight. During his first year in office, President Biden has had some struggles. He's struggled to pass key pieces of legislation he's pushed for. His poll numbers have fallen sharply. This speech tonight was clearly designed to try to reset his presidency. Do you think tonight's address will help him to do that?
Possibly, Alex, but you have to remember that the construct of this speech was going to be about 90% domestic issues, and the president certainly touched on that. But the Ukrainian situation has overshadowed everything in the world, and so the first part of this speech tonight had to address the Ukrainian conflict, and the message to Vladimir Putin, I will say, was as direct and strong as we've seen in many years in a State of the Union speech, possibly going back to 2002 and 2003 with George W. Bush and Saddam Hussein, and words about the need to finish his reign. So tonight's speech was, as it always is at a State of the Union, a mashup of a lot of different ideas. You have to remember, all of the cabinet members push for their pieces of the speech, and so sometimes these State of the Union speeches can be a little bit of just a lot of different things, and frankly, a lot of word salad. And we've seen that through the years. I think for the first State of the Union speech, the president did okay.
Brian, our political reporter Greg Lee was quick to point out that President Biden tonight did not mention the Build Back Better bill, although he did talk about some provisions of the bill. This is obviously a reframing of what his economic agenda is going to be. Do you believe that he was specific enough, for example, on how he plans to ramp down inflation?
Well, for the members that are sitting there tonight, they understand that Build Back Better is stalled. And he was speaking to the American people about the various elements of the plan that he thought would resonate with Americans. Prices at the pump, prices for prescription medicine, all sorts of things that he thought the American people would want to hear. But I would point out that the speech and the room just lacked some energy tonight. And as you noticed from watching the speech, there was a every other seat filled kind of situation. When you're in that room for a State of the Union, as I have been, the energy in there is really palpable. And when a president hits these bipartisan lines, it's like the Capitol elevates. And that wasn't happening tonight. And part of that, I think, was the fact that a whole lot of members were not in the room this evening.
All right, obviously the president tonight opened up by addressing the crisis in Ukraine and Russia's invasion of that country. He ran down the severe economic sanctions that have been leveled by the U.S. and other allied nations against Russia. And he said tonight of Vladimir Putin, quote, he has no idea what's coming. It was a very forceful line. Do you think that President Biden took a tough enough stance here on this crisis to give Americans confidence in his ability to handle the situation in Ukraine?
Yes, with respect to Ukraine, I think he addressed Vladimir Putin directly. Vladimir Putin was undoubtedly watching this speech at 5 a.m. in Moscow, getting real-time translation. I'm sure Xi Jinping at 10 a.m. in Beijing was listening very closely. You'll note that there wasn't much on China in the speech, if anything, but he was very direct. I think the whole address of the Ukrainian situation was very forceful. He might have taken some time to address the Ukrainian people directly. That did not happen. He talked a lot about their courage and everything else, but he might have made a statement to the Ukrainian people. But, you know, you analyze these speeches afterwards, and a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. It is his first State of the Union address. I think he kind of raced through some pieces of it, to be honest with you, stepped on his own applause lines at times. I felt like the speaker, Pelosi, behind him, didn't know whether to stand or sit sometimes. It was very awkward, but that's what happens during these kinds of speeches. They're very emotional. He is speaking to the entire world. Everybody was listening, including anybody who could listen in Ukraine. It was a very, as I said last evening, a very consequential speech.
Indeed it was. Brian Sobel, really appreciate your analysis tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure.